After test driving it for about a week now, I can honestly say that the Lenovo Legion Go has the potential to make some serious waves in the handheld gaming space. Now, this newly launched Windows-based handheld PC strives to fit the bill in a number of different use case scenarios, and it mostly exceeds for the most part. But the thing is, Lenovo's multi-tool approach in some areas comes at the expense of other benefits. This is a device that is sure to turn heads, and it has a few party tricks up its sleeve. But in all its beauty, power, and high functionality, truthfully, there's still much to be done considering the later entry in the market behind some very strong competition. Coming from the Ally, the Legion Space UI right now feels raw. But we're going to get into the software in just a sec, because first, I want to talk about my initial in-hand experience. Now, there's no way around it. The Legion Go is a pretty big boy, but because the massive display has such small bezels, it isn't nearly as large as it could have been if that care hadn't been taken. It comes in at about 880 grams on the scale versus 705 for the Steam Deck and 630 for the ROG Ally. But in spite of the size and weight disparity, the device feels incredibly solid and the weight very evenly distributed, even though the controllers are much lighter than I expected. The first instinct when you pick it up is to assume the hand position as you would with the Steam Deck. But I can tell you right now that that is a big mistake, because the front edges of the controllers have little to no semblance of a gradual transition into the more rounded backside. So if you try to twist your hands more inward, as the Steam Deck's more rounded grips encourage, this is not going to feel good after a few minutes on the Lenovo Legion Go, because it'll start to feel like the controller corners are digging right into the epicenter of your palms. So what I've found is you're going to have to retrain your brain and your muscle memory a bit for the Lenovo Legion Go in order to obtain a more comfortable and sustainable grip. To do this, I start off by placing the lower backside of the controller into the center of my palm. I then curve my hand inward a bit so my index finger is parallel to the flat straight edge, and then I bring that fingertip down onto the shoulder button. So as you game, this places the more sharp front corner into the more meaty area of your hand right below the thumb, which feels much more comfortable than having the corners dig into the center of your palm with twisting your hands more inward. This is obviously going to take some practice, just as it honestly took me some time to adjust to the ergonomics of the Ally. Nevertheless, I've asked myself repeatedly now, why didn't Lenovo just round out these corners more to begin with? And the answer I keep coming back to, right or wrong, is that so in FPS mode, when the right controller doubles as a mouse, it can lie more flush on a tabletop. And of course, for the sake of symmetry, that meant following that very same design choice for the left controller as well. I have absolutely no confirmation from anyone over at Lenovo that that is the reason behind the sharper front edges. This is simply a hunch. But I'll say, if there is any truth to this, my take is that no secondary feature should ever come at the cost of fundamental comfort and ergonomics. But there is a silver lining here, which is that because the controllers are removable, Lenovo could potentially offer a more rounded pair of controllers down the road. Before we continue, this video would not be possible today if it wasn't for the hard work and sacrifice from my newly acquired robot by UGreen. It charged the Go, the Ally, the Steam Deck throughout the entire filming of this video, and never once did it complain about their lousy battery life. So please, join me in a round of applause for the UGreen Nexon Robot GaN Fast Charger. This device is actually a 65-watt charger, and it makes facial expressions based on the charge status of your device. It features 2 USB-C ports and a single USB-A, or you can pick up the 30-watt version, which has a single port. It's pocketable, PDP compliant, and it has short circuit protection. It's quickly become one of my favorite mini portable chargers because it doesn't have collapsible prongs that often sag under the weight of a power brick. You simply slip off the feet and you're ready to go. UGreen also has a newly released 4K USB-C hub. It features a high-speed Ethernet port, 3 USB-A ports, and a micro and standard SD card reader. Make sure to check out the description and keep an eye out for Black Friday because they're going to have some major price cuts then. Anyway, I do like the flat and more neutral colored face buttons as compared to the Ally, though I do prefer the larger size of the Ally buttons. Thumbsticks have a good range of movement and feel really nice and grippy, but I do wish they were a little larger as with the Ally, and that the RGB ring had a larger circumference as with the Ally, because with that it grips, it's hard to really appreciate the RGB straight on without maneuvering the thumbsticks from side to side. Ideally, all 4 function buttons should honestly be placed at the top as with the Ally. But if you're going to go this route, the menu and the view buttons should have most certainly been placed at the top, with the Legion buttons placed down below as on the Steam Deck, because this arrangement leads to having to stretch your left thumb down to launch in-game menus and maps. There is a more ergonomic workaround, however, which involves remapping any of the back keys for the menu and view button. But I really hope in a future update that these 4 function buttons can simply be swapped with one another in the remapping tool. I also find the trackpad a bit low for my taste, but I have pretty long fingers, so it isn't too out of the way. Overall, the trackpad works really well, but I do wish that there was an option to activate a left mouse click using the right shoulder button as with the Ally. But there is a workaround for this as well, which involves enabling Xbox controller input in the Steam settings. This allows you to use the right stick for the mouse and the triggers for clicks. The problem with leaning on Steam, however, rather than having this native, is that when the Steam app isn't launched, those features won't be available. Nevertheless, the Legion Go probably has the best Windows navigation layout for any handheld to date when using the trackpad and the back scroll wheel in tandem. And you can even passively auto-scroll down or up a page with the wheel lock feature. The volume button placement is in a considerably better place on the Go than the Ally, as well as the SD card slot. The air intake and exhaust vents appear to perform their job very well, but the fan curve software is in dire need of some fine-tuning. I actually really like the exaggerated triggers on the Go with the dovetail. I might even like these gun-like triggers even more than the Ally. They remind me a lot of Ioneo 2, but I think Lenovo did it even better with not making them even height with the shoulder buttons as with Ioneo. I'm not really sure how I feel about M1 and M2 though, because I'm constantly inadvertently pressing these as well as the 4 back buttons. There's just a lot going on back here, and I'm still working on getting adjusted and familiarizing myself with everything. Now, I was worried that the Legion Go's top firing speakers wouldn't stack up with the Ally before I got it in hand, and it seems that that concern is very much validated. The Go speakers can hold a candle to the deck, yet along the Ally. Out of the box, they lack volume and resonance in comparison, though they are a step above Ioneo speakers. And check this out, downloading the FX Sound software and using the music preset makes a huge difference. The Go speakers get significantly louder and they sound much fuller than fresh out of the box. But I'm hoping Lenovo can tweak some things on the back end in the future to make them better compatible with Dolby Atmos. For good measure, the specs for the Go are as follows. It's rocking a whopping 8.8-inch QHD display that currently supports 60 and 144 Hz. However, it is a native portrait display with a 16:10 aspect ratio. It has 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, a 49.2 watt-hour battery, 2 USB-C 4.0 ports, Bluetooth 5.1, HD haptics, and gyro support. But the biggest key takeaway, if you're comparing this device to the ROG Ally, is that it has faster transfer speeds, a larger battery, and not only a larger display, 1600p versus 1080p, but it has even better saturation in colors than on the Ally, which I really wasn't expecting. Though the glass is much more reflective, but in time, as accessories start to roll out, a good anti-reflective screen protector should be able to correct this. So the first thing I have to call out for the Legion Space software before we even jump into the main UI is the fact that there is absolutely no indication of battery status when charging the device in sleep or powered off state. We have this fantastic RGB power button here that notifies you at a glance of your TDP power profile status. But for some reason, this isn't utilized to give users some kind of indication of where your battery level is. Pulling the charge cable out and reattaching it is the only way to check the charge status, which has me flabbergasted. The second issue outside of Legion Space itself has to do with the startup prompt. Legion Space has this very slow initial load up when you power on the device, and it probably has a lot to do with this drawn out and heavy animation loop. And right now, it doesn't look like you can turn it off, and you cannot stop Legion Space from automatically launching each and every time you power on the Go. Okay, pause. This is me from the future. Lenovo actually just dropped a Legion Space update that allows you to disable the auto launch on boot. And I'm cutting out the whole tangent that I went on. Who gave the go-ahead, thumbs up, seal of approval on this? About the whole tap to 3 times in order to launch the most essential quick menu. Tap once and it now pops up. Problem is, you're no longer able to access that left quick menu unless you're already in Legion Space. But thank you Lenovo for fixing that. The color scheme also looks way better. Now let's continue with the rest of the video because unfortunately there's still a number of things that needs to be fixed. Now, if you focus on the top left-hand corner, you're presented with a popular gaming platforms portal that houses launchers such as Steam, GOG, Epic Games, and Xbox Game Pass. Backing out, you'll get some Game Planet recommended games on that first row as well. And below the 5 blue digital tabs, you'll find more featured games organized by category, which are also powered by the Games Planet digital storefront. Jumping back up to the 5 main digital tabs, from left to right, we have Cloud Game, which simply launches you into the Xbox browser, Game Store, which launches you into the full Game Planet storefront that's advertised to have exclusive discounts for Go owners, Library, where your games in theory are automatically pulled into from other platforms, theory, because this doesn't work very reliably right now. And for some reason, the left and right shoulder buttons can't be used to toggle in between recently played and the All Games tab. In fact, the shoulder buttons cannot be used to navigate Legion Space at all outside of the controller mapping subsection. But as you can see, I pulled in some useful apps such as FX Sound and Lenovo System Update, but they don't reliably launch from here. So most times I have to locate the app outside of Legion Space anyway. Skipping over settings really quickly, we have the Android Game tab, which is a nice add, though I haven't poked around in here too much just yet. And finally, we come to the most important section in all of Legion Space, the Settings tab. And when I cycled through the available sections for the very first time, I couldn't believe just how much is missing in comparison to the ROG Ally. Where are my GPU settings to adjust VRAM without manually booting into BIOS? Where are my custom fan curve settings? Where are my customizable hotkeys so I can close out games without navigating in-game menus, for example? Where are my controller configuration settings to adjust dead zones and trigger pull sensitivity? Where are my thumbstick and trigger calibration settings? And the list goes on and on. I understand that the Ally is 4 months ahead, but I didn't imagine that Legion Space would be this hollow at launch. But I'm starting to better understand the early unit embargoes, because I think this was Lenovo lamenting themselves that Legion Space isn't the device's strongest selling point right now. The positive, though, is that the UI is neatly organized and it doesn't feel cluttered. However, in the Performance tab, Thermal Mode is pretty self-explanatory, but there should be information on exactly how many watts each of the power profiles are actually pulling, as with the Ally. I also find it interesting that the UI differentiates Thermal TDP versus OS TDP, but there should be better explanation on how to best leverage the two to get the most optimum performance for gaming. In the Display tab, it'd be really nice to have the option to leverage 120 Hz in addition to 60 and 144. And I have no idea why a cable must be attached in order to switch from 144 Hz to 60. The Voice tab is oddly named. It should simply be called Audio. And as you can see, I'm using the FX Sound audio profile as I mentioned earlier, which I can't recommend enough for a higher volume and fuller sound. The controller section isn't too bad right now, like the vibration setting, the test input, and the ability to update the controller firmware directly inside. The button remapping subsection is also much appreciated, though I've noticed some of the remapping is a little off. For example, the menu and the view appear to be reversed. I remapped M3 for the view button and Y3 for menu, but when I click Y3, it brings up view, and when I click M3, it brings up menu. Not sure what's going on there, but I'm really hoping that the next update corrects it. In addition to this gaming remap functionality, it'd be a really nice add to be able to remap keyboard and mouse keys as well. For the customize section, one benefit the Go actually has over the Ally is the ability to customize the brightness of the RGB thumbstick rings. As to this day, we're still stuck with 0, 33, 67, and 100% presets for the Ally. The other Legion Space tabs are pretty self-explanatory, but I did want to show you guys that I am using a third-party 2TB SSD from Micro Center, which in reality provided 1.8 terabytes for actually storing games. And I'm also using a 1 terabyte Extreme SD card. So considering that the Legion Go is still such a fresh product and is using outdated AMD graphics drivers, I'm not going to do a super deep dive so early in the game, because it's very possible that we can start to see some pretty significant changes for the Go once these updates and optimizations start to roll in. That being said, I did bump up the VRAM on the Go in BIOS from 3 to 4G to better line up with the Ally prior to running some early benchmarks to get a better sense of how the Go is stacking up against the Ally right now. So for now, we're going to compare the power profiles against one another, which might have some slight variations. The Ally silent profile, 10 watts versus the Go's quiet. The Ally Performance 15 watts versus the Go's Balance mode, the Ally's Turbo 25 preset versus the Go's Performance, and finally the Ally's plugged in 30 watt turbo mode versus the Go's custom 30 watt setting. Also keep in mind that because the Go has a native aspect ratio of 16:10 versus 16:9 on the Ally, and that the 720p option isn't available yet in the Cyberpunk menu. This isn't a perfect one-to-one as resolution goes, so it's going to be 720p for the Ally versus 800 for the Go. The parameters for the first chart are as shown: 800 versus 720p resolution, low graphics preset with FSR enabled for ultra performance. At 10 watts, as has come to be expected, the deck completely runs away with it with an average FPS of 53. However, as we move into the 15 watt territory, the Go and the Ally promptly move ahead. But as you can see, the Ally creates some sizable separation on the Go at 15 watts, an average FPS of 69 versus 60 for the Go. But just when it looks like the Ally is about to run away with it, at 25 watts, the Go pulls in an average FPS of 83 versus 78 for the Ally. And at 30 watts, this time it's the Go that creates a sizable separation from the Ally, 88 FPS for the Go versus 81 for the Ally. Shifting gears to graphics high preset with FSR enabled, geared towards quality. At 15 watts, we get a pretty sizable frames drop on the deck, down to an average FPS of 33. However, the Go and the Ally jump out immediately at 40 FPS, with the Ally just inching out the Go 42 FPS versus 41. The Ally maintained the lead at 25 watts as well, 64 FPS versus 62. But the Go returned to the top at 30 watts, 69 FPS versus 67 for the Ally. Of course, I ran a lot of other test runs and benchmarks off camera, but we're going to keep it short and sweet for this first impressions video. I realize this is a small sample size, but considering that the Go is pushing about 100K more pixels than the Ally, 800p versus 700p, and the fact that the Go is still utilizing old drivers, this is honestly a pretty impressive first showing for the Lenovo Legion Go. So I'm really looking forward to revisiting performance once these BIOS and firmware updates start kicking in. Looking back at the earlier sections of this video, one might say that I'm being too tough or too hard on the Lenovo Legion Go, and perhaps there's some truth to that, but that's with good reason, because this device is burdened with so much potential, and I really want to see it reach those heights. And glossing over a number of gripes that are brought to the forefront is not going to help in that regard. Competition is getting stiff and really starting to ramp up, so tech companies are going to have to do more than simply deliver spec'd out handhelds with clever marketing. They're going to have to continually support them and improve them as time goes on. And considering that the Best Buy return window is currently on end of year holidays extension, the clock for Lenovo Legion Go could be ticking. Sidestepping really quickly, you'll notice that I didn't touch on the FPS mode earlier, and that's because the jury is still out for me. My first impressions is that it feels very awkward and that it's going to require a lot of time and commitment to truly master this setup. My early thoughts in general is that you probably shouldn't buy the Legion Go if FPS mode is your primary selling point, because in addition to the awkward buttons placement, you'll probably find that the magnetic base is not as sturdy as you hoped. Honestly, the massive, beautiful QHD screen with 144 refresh rate is its true claim to fame. But with that being said, I have to admit that gaming with the controllers detached, one in each hand, as you would on the Switch, offers a very cool and laid-back experience on the Go, specifically for the PC platform, that could very well be widely adopted because of this device. If you put hours in on a handheld, I'm sure at some point you've experienced neck pain. So being able to take a more heads-up position while leaning back in your chair offers a different dynamic that I never knew that I wanted for PC. That was a revelation for me. I'm actually now considering the Go glasses or other AR alternatives because of this. Before you jet, drop some things you like to see in future comparisons for these two handhelds. And what do you think about the Steam Deck OLED announcement? Is this the handheld to rule them all in 2023? Drop a comment. What do you think will be your preferred handheld moving into 2024? And in your humble opinion, what do you think gives it a distinct advantage over the others? As always, thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.